Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus. Other side of the screen, not present today. Lester's still on the short-term IR. I did go to the game last night. I had some thoughts. Wanted to get them out before I headed up to Wrigley Field to catch a Cubs game, which hopefully, if this rain flows through the city, we will have that game. But I wanted to get a couple thoughts out to you guys. I'm going to channel my inner Bill Zimmerman and try to just do a nice little solo pod here. I promise to not yell at you because why would I yell at you? It was 38-0 last night. There's nothing to yell about unless I'm just yelling at you to get excited because there was a lot of really fun stuff. Before I get into the game, before I get into the categories, just want to talk about just the vibe. Like I've stayed in the team hotel a couple times. We did so again last night. It's a nice hotel, and it's also within walking distance of Soldier Field, and it's kind of cool to be able to see the players. I wasn't necessarily waiting for them. I've never really done that, but you just happen to cross paths with some of these guys, and I'm waiting for my room to be ready. So I'm just kind of hanging out in the lobby, and got up and walked right past Javon Dexter, who was walking out. Massive human being. It's just good to remind yourself that these guys are the 1% of 1% from time to time, right? Like these guys are very big, and when someone says, well, I could have caught that or I could have made that pass, it's okay. I kind of doubt it. I mean, I've certainly said that before, but it's nice to remind yourself that these guys are, just on a different level physically. So happened to also be in this hotel that's hosting the American Public Works, Association of American Public Workers or something like that, and rode the elevator with someone who works for the Public Works of Arlington Heights. And so he made a comment about, oh, you're getting ready to go to the game. And I was like, yeah, I'll bet you have an interest in this football team. And we kind of went back and forth for, an elevator ride. So a quick 30 seconds. But the summary was, yeah, we really want the stadium, but yeah, ... And you can kind of see his mind working, just like how much that's going to change his part of town, his city, the responsibilities that they're going to have. And, it's hard to not, every time you go to Soldier Field now, think, well, how many more of these is there going to be? What's the city losing? And, every time I come, you just fall in love with the city all over again. For someone who's not from here, for someone who doesn't live here, it's a very enchanting place. There's a lot of really beautiful things about this city, the architecture, the food. I'm currently staring at a piece of Soldier Field out my hotel window. I'm looking at Lake Michigan. I'm looking at the downtown skyline. I mean, I have an amazing view right now. And it's really tough to beat that. And you go to a suburb, and I don't really care how nice a suburb is. It can't really match this. So it'll definitely be different, right? I'm sure that they'll do a nice job on the stadium. You hope that they don't go small or go cheap or whatever. Those criticisms and those comments are for later. But just kind of taking in the experience of going to a game, even if it's preseason, of going to a game in the city of Chicago, it's just not something that's going to be able to be replicated in a suburb. And so, again, it doesn't impact me that much, because I don't go to every game, maybe once a year for me. A lot of fans, it's a once a year experience, or maybe a once every couple years experience. For a lot of people, it's going to fundamentally change how they experience Bears football because they're season ticket holders. And I just, you do lose a lot. You do lose something by moving it out of the city. I assume the people that are coming from out of town are going to stay in the city and enjoy the city life, and then make their way out to the game, to the stadium. Maybe it makes it easier to get into the stadium because it's not surrounded by one side by a lake, but overall, I don't know if we can oversell or undersell. I think this is just representative of the realities of the ownership and what they do and don't own. And I just think if you do have a chance, if you haven't been here yet, or you only come every so often, try to make sure that you get out to a game over the next couple of years, because you want to experience this before you can't anymore. And I'm sure, again, that they're going to do a nice job on the stadium. But I think that was sort of what was going through my mind a little bit last night. I took my wife, it was her first time going to the game. maybe she's a good luck charm because, again, 38-0, a lot of fun there. I bought tickets in a different spot than I normally do. I really like to be close to the action. I like to be on the 100 level. That's sort of my vibe. I like to hear it. Like I like to experience, as much as I can, and you just can't replicate the sound at home that well. And I just think it's a lot of fun to be able to be really close. You can hear quarterback barking signals. You can, hear the pads thumping. But of course, that's a little more expensive. And so for me, generally 100 level, that's in my price range, is in, the end zones or in the corner end zones. And, maybe I could get, on the sideline, like all the way down at the end. But then once, you start getting up, towards the middle of the field, pretty expensive. And so last night's preseason game, prices are fairly affordable throughout for preseason games. Season ticket holders are just trying to dump them as much as possible because they have to pay, of course, for the whole season, and they're going to pay the face value of those games in the preseason. So, usually they'll give a little discount. And so I thought, well, let's try this club level. Let's try sitting up, near the middle of the field. I haven't been inside of the United Club or anything like that before, and so let's try it. Let's see what it looks like. Very different experience, going into like an air-conditioned area. They had all your own vendors. They had their own pro shop inside of there, not the pro shop for the plebes out in the stadium concourse, but they had their own pro shop, and they have all this stuff that's just in this little club area. I thought, okay, that is pretty nice. I can see how this would be a nice thing when it's cold, for sure, to be able to retreat down to a heated area. That's definitely a different way to experience a football game than I have ever been able to experience it before. And then I got up to my seat, and this was section 309 for those of you that have been there and have experienced this. I mean, it was right on the 50. I mean, I think my seat looked right on like the 45-yard line, 46-yard line, but like it was, essentially dead center, and decent amount up, but not too far up that where it was like a nosebleed or anything. And I started watching the game. I was like, oh man, I can just see everything. I can see everything open up. And it was maybe like a really obvious thing to a lot of you, like, yeah, no kidding, Jeff, you're sitting on the 50-yard line of a football game, of course you're gonna be able to see everything. It's just not something I've really experienced before. I've been to maybe a dozen NFL games, but again, like a lot of what I have tried to do is get close, and it's been in the end zone. And so it was a really fun experience to be able to sit up top. And the thing that I was able to take away, I could see the whole game, right? Like you can see the whole field, you can see plays develop in a really fun way. And, the TV angle's usually a tight shot of, the quarterback in the pocket. You don't ever get to see what happens in the secondary. You got to go to coach's film, and you got to watch all 22. And that's what a 50-yard line seat is. It's just all 22. Where do your eyes want to go? And for me, it was just trying to like take in the patterns of what was popping out, and the navy orange jerseys where they were popping away from white jerseys was something that really stuck out to me. Like where a guy could really be schemed open, and I saw that a lot in Ben Johnson's offense last night. And it was just really fun to have that experience, and I'm glad that I went to a preseason game. Believe it or not, like I talk against it a lot because it is a meaningless thing in terms of the record book, but it was a good experience for me to be able to take in something that that ticket would have been 5 or 6 times or maybe more than it was for me last night. And that's not something I really want to spend on a regular basis. So it was a cool experience, and again, kind of a little bit of a plug that for those of you that want to maybe see a game in a different way, that's a pretty cool way to do it. So experience that. I liked it. Stadium, beautiful Chicago night on the lakeshore. The energy of the city, Chicago in the summer, really tough to beat. It doesn't get beat by very many places. So cool experience. Highly recommend. Try to get it in before you can't. So let's get into the categories real quick. I'll try to run through these. Trench tribute for me, I think you could give it to the offensive line. There's a lot of offensive linemen that played really well. Tough for me to see that live because, again, I was trying to watch something I hadn't had the expectation to be able to see normally. But for me, just like on the personal level, good to see Andrew Billings healthy. So Big Bill was able to get a sack. And I just, man, it's just a guy I like. He's just, a huge presence, obviously physically, but also just in how good of a player he is and how much he means to this defensive line. The Bears' run defense was really stout and strong. In the early part of the year, he gets injured and it really fell apart. Now, that's not a good reflection of, team building where you're counting on one player to carry an entire aspect of your football team. But I do think that this team is a little deeper this year, and he's back and he's healthy, and he's just a good football player. And he's not known for being able to get to the passer as a pass rusher, but he got a sack last night. Again, even if it's preseason and it doesn't count on his stats, it's fun to see. He was pumped up, had a little sack dance. Love to see it. So for me, Trench tribute, Andrew Billings. Want to hit Caleb's corner real quick, and we'll talk about all the quarterbacks here, but Caleb finished 6 for 10 for 107 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception, no sacks. He was 5 for 6 on the first drive for 97 yards. They started off in a hole. And for those of you that watched the game, Tyler Scott misplayed the opening kickoff, kind of let it bounce in the end zone, but he had already touched it. And so he grabbed it, took it out, and they started back. There was a holding penalty fairly early on. So Caleb was able to rack up 97 yards on one drive, which is insane. But it was really cool to see. And for me, overall, this was Caleb. They were attacking. They were, throwing the ball down the field. He was throwing over the middle. He was on time. He was in structure. It was everything that you wanted to see. It looked great. It was just a methodical drive. Now, again, I understand that it was against the Bills' backups. That's fine. That is what it is. But they should be able to do stuff like this with this new offense. And I think what really stuck out was a couple of the throws looked like, perfect. Like they were just on time and in sync. And that's what you want to see. You want to see him play in structure. We know that he can create and play off schedule and do some of those things. But is this new offense that Ben Johnson is crafting with Caleb going to click? And there's been a lot of consternation. There's been a lot of, hand wringing, like, they don't look good in practice. And, I don't know what's going to happen here. And, Caleb can't pick up. They're installing the offense. They're overloading. They're trying to figure out. They're using the time wisely. They're trying to stuff as much in the offseason to see what will happen. Now, I don't know if it's going to go perfectly to plan, but I think you have to trust this new staff that they have a good plan and they're going about executing it. And I think you got to see just a little bit of it last night, and not only from Caleb, but from the other quarterbacks, because they played well also. I mean, Tyson Bagent was 13 of 22, 196 yards and a touchdown. He had a great pass in the back corner of the end zone to Tyler Scott. The little scramble play that he had, looked a little awkward at first, where it looked like he might just run into the center and, maybe just get sacked there. But he was able to basically convince the coverage that he was going to run. They came off the receiving option. He had the presence of mind to keep his head up and just pop the ball down the field for a big chunk play. So he looked pretty good, I thought. I thought he had a much better game, honestly, than the opener. And he, made a couple really nice throws, one over the middle that I thought maybe he got away with, but, there was two guys in the same area. I think there was maybe a little bit of a mix-up there. But again, another chunk play. And so it was good to see him be able to operate this Ben Johnson offense well. And then Austin Reed, 6 for 7 for 66 yards, kept moving the ball. And so, all in, these quarterbacks combined for a line of 25 of 39 for 369 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and only 1 sack. And so it was just a perfect, night for what you want to see in a preseason, for where the offense is starting to figure things out and come together and start to look like a professional offense. This is exactly what you wanted to see, and these guys be able to execute the system, really well. And so from my vantage point, again, sitting where I was, I thought that the concept seemed to pop in a way that looked really intriguing to me. And so I'm really excited to see if that continues, with game planning and with starters on defense. Are there going to be easy buttons that open up? Are there going to be schemed open players that are going to provide this offense with some base level expectation of explosive plays every week. The thing that I've been really interested in over the last few years, as some of how many explosive plays do you create versus how many explosive plays do you give up? How many turnovers do you create versus how many giveaways you have? Those things are incredibly important. Keep your quarterback clean, get to the quarterback on the other side. And I just have this high level of confidence that both the offense and the defense are playing football in a way that embrace that idea. It's an attacking offense. It's an attacking defense. Dennis Allen's not afraid to bring guys when he needs to. And so it's just, to me, it just seems like there's a very exciting brand of football that's about to be played in Chicago. And as Bears fans, we should be excited about that. Stat of the week, number 31, number of first downs that the Bears PA announcer had to announce last night. And I'm not sure that guy has ever had to announce that many first downs for the Bears in one game. I was worried he might lose his voice. And I looked it up real quick, and maybe somebody will call me out on it. But, the last 3 years, the Eberflus era never got close to 31 first downs in a game. And I'd imagine you'd have to go back fairly far to find games higher than that. And I get it. It's preseason. Doesn't count. It's not the starters, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get it. Believe me, I know. But it's still really impressive that that team just continued to move the ball. It didn't really matter the moving pieces throughout the game. The ball kept getting moved. And I think that's a reflection of scheme and where it's getting to. And so I just think it's grounds for getting excited about what Ben Johnson and this coaching staff are doing. Quick break, and then I'll do 3 Bears. All right, so hot bowl, cold bowl, just right. My hot bowl is going to go to Luther Burden. So he had 3 catches for 49 yards. He had just a beautiful little sweep move along the sidelines where he, faked kind of to the sideline and then got the guy to turn his shoulders and then got an extra 8 yards or something out of it. And I just thought, oh, okay, this guy's got some juice, right? And that's what you want to see. You want to see a guy pop off. That's exactly what he did. And when you see a guy that looks uncoverable like Luther Burden has in the game action that he's had in the preseason, he's not going to necessarily be uncoverable if he's playing in the regular season against starters. But to me, that means he's playing at a step down from where he should be or where he will belong. And that's it. Just seeing him live and seeing him pop off the field like that really reinforced that this guy's going to be a contributor early. I'm not going to make some crazy prediction or anything like that about catches and yards or whatever, but I think he's going to contribute in this offense, to a noticeable degree this year. And as a rookie, I think that's a great thing to have. I think that maybe some people in the draft overthought this a little bit. And, coming into last year, Luther Burden was expected to be the first receiver off the board. Didn't have a great year in Missouri this last year. And a lot of people docked him for that. A lot of teams docked him for that. And he was able to fall to the Bears in the second round. And yeah, sure, maybe the Bears were wanting a running back at that pick and they got sniped or whatever, but they pivoted to a guy that they are clearly pretty excited about. And so far, it looks like they're probably going to be right. And that's really exciting because, with Rome Odunze, with DJ Moore already here, and now with Luther Burden, the Bears have 3 wide receivers, not to mention the tight ends in the passing game, that could be really exciting. That's never happened before. Even when the Bears had a couple 1,000-yard wide receivers, they certainly didn't have that elite talent and depth of really high-quality talent in the receiving corps. And just to see Luther Burden potentially be able to add to that is really exciting. And, it's always fun to get the new players out and to kind of see where they're at and how they're going to contribute at the NFL level. But, geez, it would be amazing if he's able to contribute this year early on. Cold Bowl, you're going to say, how are you going to come up with a Cold Bowl porridge in a 38-0 preseason game? But I'm sitting here, I'm watching Terrell Smith go down. It's very clearly a knee injury. It's very, to me, I have not heard an official diagnosis, but I assume that, non-contact injury, we all know what that means. So a tough moment for him. He's someone who is certainly going to contribute on that defense this year, even in a reserve capacity. He's an important person to this football team. And even if it's not an important person to the regular season, this next part is not forgivable. But it's a moment when a player's hurt. I think there's a respect that should be given, and the crowd is going to get my cold bull, and it's just a part of the crowd. And I maybe these people didn't see what was going on, but they were doing the wave. Really, we're going to do the wave in a preseason? I mean, are you that bored? And to do the wave during an injury timeout when the cart's coming on the field to get the guy and everybody's crowding around, I mean, how tone deaf are you on that? Like that was rough. It's not my thing. There's just certain things I'm just not into. The wave is one of them. I wouldn't participate in that probably at any point. But I'm certainly not going to participate in that when people are when someone's on the ground injured. And I don't know. I'd be curious to know if somebody was in the crowd in that section that was doing the wave, if you just did not know what was happening. But that sucked. I didn't like to see that. That was a turnoff for me. The just right bowl for me. I'm gonna say Ian Wheeler. 19 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. I thought he had a nice game. I don't know what his future is here. I know that Ryan Poles really likes this young man. It's nice to see him recover from the injury. He was a Hard Knocks favorite last year. Someone who's obviously very intelligent and has, a path after football sort of outlined of what he wants to do. But he looks like he can stick on at least the practice squad. And we know that running backs get hurt. The Bears are dealing with injuries right now to the running back room, right? And so, can Ian Wheeler stick on the practice squad, if nothing else, and try to continue to rehab and get a little get back fully strength? I don't know if he's as fast as he was or if he's fully recovered. He certainly looked good enough in this preseason game. But can he potentially stick around and be somebody that can help this team down the line if they need to elevate him? I hope so. Certainly rooting for him. Watched all those Hard Knocks episodes and was part of the Wheeler fan club, and good to see him recap here, rebound here, and be able to contribute. And so that's what I did. That's what I got. Quick run through of all the categories. Before I get out of here, I've tried my very best to be reserved. It's always hard during a regime change because you kind of let your head in the sky and maybe maybe this will work, maybe that'll work. And for those of you that have been following this show or following our work for a long time, we weren't really in love with the last regime from the start. We, of course, that's the guy you hire, so you're going to give him a chance and you're going to go roll with it. Different regimes before this, I've been skeptical or excited, some level of variation. This is my guy. I'm out here. This is the guy that I picked over a year ago. Ben Johnson seemed like the obvious guy. The Bears stuck with Flus last year. We called that as a mistake, but said, okay, let's roll. I think they got a little lucky that he didn't take the Washington job last year. He went back to Detroit, put up for a third time an elite offense. It just doesn't happen very often that an offensive coordinator goes back and does it 3 times. And so, the Bears got a little lucky, but you know what? Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. They get him here. I think he clearly likes the city of Chicago, coming to Cubs games with his wife every year. There's a real match here. And I think you're seeing that this guy is not just an egghead. He's not just like a X's and O's guys on the board that has created this scheme or whatever. He's a football coach. He's going to drive these guys. The city is going to love this guy. And he's put together a staff that I think is really strong. A lot of the assistant coaches, the positional coaches, I think are, they're on their way up. The arrow's pointing up on some of these guys. I think with some success, you'll see these guys get targeted and pulled away. Dennis Allen, guy's former head coach, you've heard it a lot, but he's been a former head coach a couple times. I don't think he's going to get another option. There's going to be, I think, some real stability on the defensive side of the ball because of that. And so I think that there's some really good potential here. Now, doesn't work. Someone can pull this and, put it up on cold takes or whatever. But I'm telling you guys, this is the first time in the time that I've been doing this, which is a decade, that I'm honestly excited about everything being in place. And so, I wrote that article a few months ago, about being on the mountainside with a cup of coffee, waiting for the sun to rise and waiting for you guys to join me. And that's where I'm at. I'm still sitting here. Like, I'm excited. I think it's great. Nothing I've seen has changed my mind. And I think we're just in store for some really good football coming up. So excited that you're with us. We'll get Lester activated off that IR here soon. We'll get back to normal Bears coverage, and appreciate you all, and enjoy the time between now and kickoff.